Now, good evening and welcome to episode 7 of Conversations With. Now, before you all think you've clicked the wrong link and it's not the usual podcast you are used to, well, in some respects you might be right. Tonight we are turning the tables on the man who started all this. The man behind the idea, the man with man in his name. You'll find him on Insta as Amanndoesweightloss_JSA. But for myself, and I'm sure a lot of the regular listeners, you'll know him as I Was the Man. Welcome to your own podcast. How are you?
I'm very well. It's very interesting being on the other side of the table.
Yeah, so how are you feeling about that? You know, how are you going to be feeling about being on the other side of the questions?
I just need that, and I just need to be mindful of, I guess. I think not try and jump in.
I can't see that being an issue. What I first want to say though is I want to say thank you for letting you share your story with me. We've had the pre-talk. I think we're on for about two and a half hours, and you've got quite a hell of a story to tell. When you kind of posed the idea that you wanted to do it yourself, I just threw my hat in the ring and said, look, if you felt comfortable when you did my podcast, then I would be quite happy to do yours. And I was over the moon that you asked me. So I just want to first start by saying thank you for the opportunity for you to share your story with me, but obviously with everyone else. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. When I said this at the start, when people asked in the first couple of posts on the Facebook group and things, as you know, when are you going to tell your story? It got me thinking of, okay, yeah, I need to tell my story. And I spoke to friends and other JSA members about that, and some people said, oh, you should get James to do it. We all know that that's probably a pipe dream, and it wouldn't have been the right thing to do.
Yeah, it would have been amazing.
But then I thought about James and Darren had done theirs, and they'd just spoken to the camera. But actually, I really like the fact that we can just turn the tables, and I feel really comfortable kind of talking to you about that. And we did your podcast, so yeah, thank you for offering it.
No, not a problem. Like I said, we've only known each other, what, 7 or 8 weeks? So yeah. It's, thank you that you felt comfortable enough sharing. So a little bit of data around the success that you've developed, and we'll call it success. So you've had almost 2,000 plays of all the podcasts up to now, up to this morning, I believe it was. Over 5 different platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, amongst others. You've reached the far corners of the globe, from USA to Australia to the Falkland Islands, and I'm pretty sure in Falklands Islands, I think there's one JSA member. I think that's Gabby. So I'm presuming that might be Gabby who's listening there. To the UAE. Cyprus on there. Now I think Joey's in for Cyprus as well. He's a JSA member. He's based in the army there, so I'm presuming that might be him. Germany, and obviously Great Britain and the Republic of Ireland. And when you first started this, did you expect that kind of success in such a short time?
No, I didn't know what to expect. I went into it saying that I would never look at the numbers. But I'm a numbers man, and very quickly I was looking at what the numbers were. So, I had no expectations. Ultimately, I set the goal that if we could just tell the stories, and those stories inspired one other person to make a change or to adapt, then that was a success. So, I had no expectations. I didn't know how it was going to go, and ultimately, I didn't know if it was ever going to be kind of approved by James Smith. So there was it wasn't recorded before he gave his approval, but once he gave his approval, it was gung-ho and game on.
So leads on to a question now. Normally we leave, or you leave questions to the end, but I think it leads on to quite nicely to a question that Sam Painter. So Sam is obviously one of your guests. I think it was episode 3. I think she did. So she's actually said, why did you decide to start the podcast? And I know we go later on about how it's developed, but what was that initial idea? What was the kind of what planted the seed as such?
So lockdown happened, and I knew from last year when I was made redundant that if I didn't keep myself, so I was furloughed this year.
Yeah.
Having been redundant last year for the same sort of period of time, I knew if I didn't keep myself busy, my brain using what's in there, that I could go. What I can only describe of last year was feeling a bit thick.
Right.
So I was thinking of, how, not just ways I could do it, but I was watching, I'm very into my personal development, and I watch a lot of people on YouTube. And I was watching one guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said, if you're passionate about baseball, do a podcast on baseball. If you're passionate about the New York Knicks, do a podcast on that. And it just came to me in a kind of light bulb moment. I thought, the JSA, and it had been asked previously to James, would he ever have members on his podcast?
Yeah.
And that had always been kind of rebutted as logistics, difficult to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it never happened. And I know that since starting it, a few other people have all come to me and said, I had that idea. But
it's all about timing. And do you know what? I think you timed it spot on, because me personally, I can speak for personally, and I know I've spoke to other members and other non-members, that this time during lockdown and furlough, people have got so much time on their hands that they're not able to go to the gym. They're not necessarily able to go to work, but what they're able to do is actually go out walking.
Yeah.
What you do when you walk, you either listen, I would say a decent percentage of people listen to things.
Mm-hmm.
So I know myself, I've got a rotation of about 3 or 4 podcasts, and they're timed really well, and this one is one of them. So I know once I've finished 3, I've got one of these ones coming up, which is great. And honestly, I think you've timed it spot on.
Well, and it was from watching, from watching Darren's podcast. I thought that's actually very easy to set up.
Yeah.
I knew that I had the skill set to host it, and hopefully people think I've been hosting it well. But watching that and seeing that it was just a Zoom recording made me think that's possible.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'd been thinking about it for a couple of weeks, and I had a few beers, and I was like, well, if you're going to do it, you've got to involve James. You've got to get his approval. Ultimately, I could have probably just gone about it and made it, but I thought that's disrespectful to something he had actually built. So I dropped him an email. He's always saying, send me an email. And I half expected it to be, thanks, mate, but, this is my thing. I appreciate the offer. And I woke up the next morning and I'm browsing in bed through my emails, and there was a reply. And from anybody who's emailed James, you'll know that he's very succinct and to the point.
Yeah.
And it was words to the effect of, love it, go for it, let me know if I can help. And I was like, okay, we've got to do it now. I can't let the boss down. And I knew that if I didn't do it, it would just be another one of, oh, well, they said they would and they never did. So, it was, from that point, it was game on, and I went ahead, and, Jo was a massive help to making it happen for the first one, because she supported me through the learning of it and made me think and gave me some of that critical thinking and made me think that, okay, you can't just dive into this. You've got to go and, look at types of questions to ask and all that stuff. So, another couple of days later, and we were live.
Yeah, I think Joe's been initially straight away, and ever since. And I'd like to think that we all have, all the guests who have been, even that, those that know that they're coming on, they've been massive cheerleaders as such, which is great to see. And for those who have obviously listened to these podcasts, but those listeners who are part of the JSA, they'll know that James is fully invested in his members and the community. Now, obviously, it is primarily fitness based around improving our, our quality of life through fat loss, fitness. But I think more recently, obviously, there has been a lot of focus around mental well-being. James is a big advocate of that, and if you scroll through back some of his recent posts, a lot of them are focused on mental health.
Well, if you just look at his new book and the direction that that's going,
yeah,
I think that shows you where that he's realised there's more to the transformation process than just lifting weights and having a calorie deficit.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I speak personally for me that it's one aspect for me that has helped my mental health is kind of the community that it's brought together. It's been a massive tool to get, to get together with people, to meet people, to talk with like-minded people who are on that same journey or want to start that same journey. So, you've got a lot in common straight away. But before we go any further, you've been a member for quite a while, but I have got some data about you. You said you're a big data fan, which I am as well. I work with spreadsheets and numbers every day, so I'm all about the data, all about the graphs, all about the spreadsheets. So I've got a number 42 written down here. Now, this is the number of kilograms that you've actually lost since you started your fat loss journey. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
That is amazing. Like 42 kilograms, like, well, they say it's old school, isn't it? Bags of sugar. Bags of sugar was a kilogram, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I remember taking a picture in the gym of holding a 42 kilogram weight, and I put a post on Instagram saying I used to sleep with this, shit with this, go to bed, shower with it. It was there with me every day, and just holding it was a real kind of realization of I used to walk around with that, two big plates from the gym, and strapped to me every day.
So 42 kilogram, what's that? It's about 90 pounds, isn't it? Is that right? Off the top of my head.
I've been picking up on this recently, the imperial and metric people.
There's a lot of people. It's either kilograms or it's. And
it's funny because my scale when I weigh myself in the morning tells me what it is in stone. But then I log into my app and it's converted it to kilograms. So
it's 92.4. So that's almost 100 pounds. That's like.
And I know that there's been other people in the academy who've lost 100 pounds, but it's it feels, and there's more to come, but
I've got absolutely every faith by the end of the next 12 weeks you will be in the 100 club, no doubt.
My goal weight is to be 120 kilograms, which I think for my size at 6'8" is a good kind of walking around weight. When I always look at, because I've got my height, and I know I'm looking at elite athletes, but Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, those sort of size guys similar to my height, are walking around at kind of 18.5, 19 stone, and I'd be so pleased if I could just get my number to start with a 1, and from that I'm 2 stone off, so which is 28 pounds. So half of that, I think I can't be bothered to do the conversion, but so 2 stone more, and my happy scale was predicting that will be by November the 1st.
There we go, just in time for the next book signing night out, isn't it? So we're talking about your fat loss journey there. Give me a summary. of when you started? You know, a lot of people who will be listening will be on their own journey as such, and I'm presuming they'll be listening to this to listen to everyone else's. So tell us about the journey that you're on.
So I get asked that question quite a lot. How long is it taking you to lose that weight? And in reality, I joined the JSA in April 2019. So I've lost 27 kilograms of that 42 since joining JSA. So that's, you know, kind of just over a year and a quarter. But truth be told, I've been on a weight loss journey since I was a teenager, really. But I've never done anything about it. Probably since I joined Slimming World in November 2017. So that's when I first lost a lot of weight, and over 3 months. And I remember like the first couple of weeks, it was like 16 pounds, boom, gone. You know, we know that, you know, or maybe people don't know that, you know, majority of your early weight loss is going to be kind of water weight.
Yeah.
But I saw some real quick wins there.
It's interesting you say that, because I know the ethos around the JSA is Weight Watchers and Slimming World are a no-go, but, you know, we know from listening to the earlier podcasts that myself, I had success with Weight Watchers. Simon is a massive fan and advocate of Weight Watchers. You know, it clicked for him, didn't it? So there are, you know, there are some success stories out there.
Well, you know, one of the things I learned was switching to that. And I would say I still drink the same amount of pop as I did. And I never say pop, but I just did.
Yeah, pop. Roller cola.
Roller cola. Yeah, but I used to drink gallons and gallons of the full fat stuff, whatever it was, Monsters, you know, Coke.
Whoa, don't be dissing the Monsters.
No, I'm not. It's always the full fat stuff. You know, so
not the Monsters.
But I could just pour them back. I could have, you know, 2-3 cans of Monster a day, and it was because I was seeking probably an energy boost from not having the right diet.
Yeah,
that would be one of the things I'd take away and say I got that from Slimming World. It taught me things about, and I knew how to cook. I was taught from a very young age by my mum how to cook, but it got me back into cooking.
Right.
Yeah, so it got me into kind of learning how to make things healthier. Got me into putting veg back on my plate. So there was definitely some learnings, and you know, I lost about 13, maybe 12 or 13 kilograms there in like 3 months.
Right.
Wasn't sustainable. I put a lot of that back on and battled that, getting that back off, putting that back on, getting that off, putting that on, you know, for a number of years. But
yeah,
it kind of, yeah, was a journey.
So was the Slimming World the only one, or so you said you lost quite a lot over 3 months, but you said it wasn't sustainable. Did it eventually come back on, and then you were kind of back at square one, or what?
So one thing I did after weighing in on Slimming World is I'd go to McDonald's afterwards.
Right.
Treat myself.
Yeah.
Because it finished quite late, and you know, all the excuses in the world for doing that I'd achieved, you know, and it wasn't even like a treat as if I'd lost weight. It was every week.
Yeah.
And so I didn't change some of the core bad habits, but I continued. You know, the 3 months is when I lost the weight, and I'd probably go back once every 4 or 5 weeks, maybe for a couple of weeks, and then I'd disappear again, and then I'll got to put the weight back on, so I'd go back, and I can never really commit to it. I'd always find a reason not to go.
Yeah.
But I've tried in about, so I continued that till about this September, on and off, but never really, you know, that was one of the things that kept it up and down. And then I joined something that actually was quite successful for me was a program called Man versus Fat, which is a concept where it's a football thing. So on a Monday night, you are playing five-a-side, so that's great for getting back into seeing people, doing something that I used to do as a youth.
Keeping you active. Yeah.
But you weighed in before your game.
Right.
And if you lost weight, you gained a goal for your team. If you didn't lose, I think if you lost weight, you gained 2 goals. If you gained weight, you lost a goal. So you went onto the pitch already having a score behind you, but nobody knew what that score was.
Right.
So then you can play your game, and your pitch score was added onto your weight loss score. So you were versus the other team, and then there was the league table off the back of that. And because that was, you didn't want to let your teammates down, because you didn't want to walk in the pitch going, yeah, we're already a goal down. You could be 3 goals down because you've not lost the weight as well. And there was people doing things like taking the top off down to the boxer shorts just to squeeze underneath it. You know, there's a guy in our team knew exactly that his shirt was 400 grams. Yeah, I've
heard some shit in my time, but Jesus, God, what?
Yes, there's blokes like that.
That's the first time I've ever heard of anything like that.
And if you knew you were under as well, if you knew you were going to be under, you left all your kit on, so you were only under a little bit, so that next week you could. So yeah, there was a bit of fun and games. I think it was blokes together playing banter, but yeah, when I was there, one of the lads on the team had done amazingly using isogenics, which is Herbalife, I think, or the same thing.
Yeah.
And for weeks and months, he was pushing it and pushing it and pushing it because he had become an affiliate.
There we go.
And yeah, I eventually succumbed and bought into that. So yeah,
we all learn from his mistakes. We're all learn from mistakes.
I never went full on into it.
No.
Yeah. Probably one thing I took away from that to now is having a protein shake if I'm on the go.
Yeah.
But it's a protein shake, you know, as a meal replacement, or like when I was at work, that was good for breakfast.
Yeah.
They'll be out the door at 6:30 in the morning, so I can have that, knowing that my protein shake's 400 or 500 calories. You know, it's
got a decent amount of protein, hasn't it? So it's
So I did take that away from that. However, they had days of like, you'd have your normal day, which was 2 shakes and a meal, and then 2 days a week, sometimes up to 4 days a week, you could go into what they called a cleanse, whereas you would drink a shot of this horrible mustardy, just rank tasting thick syrup stuff.
Oh, is it like that aloe vera stuff? Like this?
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's not that sort of aloe vera. It was just this sugary mix, probably to give you a bit of an energy boost for 100 or 200 calories.
Yeah.
But they declared it was going to help you clear your system, and then you would drink this diluted other purpley drink, for like, and you would do that for like.
Sounds like sugar-coated laxatives, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I couldn't really buy into that because I love my food. So
yeah.
I had tons of this stuff left because you would be bought into it. And every month on your doorstep would just arrive this stuff that's meant to be your food for the whole week. And it's like 400 or 500 quid a month. You know, so, and I couldn't get my head around it. It never worked. But I just had all this backstock, and you know, it was just, you know, there for taking up space in my kitchen.
So from the football to Herbalife, what bridged the gap between that and JSA? Was there anything in between, or was it a case of you were maintaining, gaining, losing, maintaining? You know, was it just?
Yeah, well, so that was. I was also a member of the gym. I'm still of the same gym.
Yeah.
Now from 2015, and I had a PT from the very beginning, and still do now. So I was committing to at least once a week seeing the PT.
Yeah.
But I never changed my diet. So I was training pretty hard at what I think was, and I actually think when I think my weight loss is 42 kilograms, I think it actually might be maybe 5 or 6 kilograms more than that, because that's when I started weighing. And that was probably my third PT. So I had a couple of PTs that came and went from the gym quickly, but that was my third PT that made me stand on in the gym scales where you hold the things.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I'd weighed. So I actually think at my worst, I was maybe knocking on the door at 30 stone.
Wow.
And me doing an hour of HIIT, I think it was pretty much, it could have gone bang at any time. You know, I was dead at the end of it. But I would never be able to commit myself to going to that gym more than probably twice a week, because it was so hard.
Yeah.
And my diet wasn't right to fuel it. So yeah, but that's something I continued because I used to love going. I changed my rule of going. I can't remember when I changed it, but I'd almost sometimes go to the gym just to sit in the steam room in the sauna.
Yeah.
And I changed my rule
Guilty.
to.
I used to be guilty of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you feel good because you've kind of been into that sort of positive place, but you've not done it. So I changed my rule of it. Well, wasn't allowed in there unless I'd been upstairs. So the gym's upstairs, and then all that's downstairs.
Yeah.
That meant I was probably training more, but yeah, my diet didn't really change till I joined. Yeah, I'd done the Swimming World stuff, but it didn't really change till joining JSA. In fact, it didn't really change till I was into JSA, because that wasn't my purpose of joining JSA.
So what brought you into the JSA? So you joined. You say you joined that 2019. So what did you see from the outside looking in that you wanted to be in the JSA?
I saw a community.
Okay.
Not only that, is I bought into James, as I think everybody does. That's your first port of call. I'd sat and watched him probably from the November, and I knew. I think a lot of people join knowing this stuff, less in, more out. I think that's a common thing that people probably know deep down.
Yeah.
But it was just a way he put it, the way he simplified it, and the way that he made me believe that if I was part of his academy, I could have those things. But really, it was the community. I was at a point in my life where friends had gone off and got married. My other friend who I'd lived with had moved out. And I was, I bought my house. I was feeling a bit alone.
Right. So
it was, and I thought of, how, and I think maybe some friends had said, oh, you need some new hobbies. You need to do something different. So I saw that this could be one place I could find a new community. Yeah, I could find it in the gym as well, but I'd sort of seen a bit from the outside looking in that, from watching James's stories and things, it was, the events, the challenge winners, seeing how many people were clapping on the challenge winners from, I think at that time it was Fiji, or it was only the one. It was the one lady. I can't remember her name, from Ireland.
I think that was Layla, wasn't it?
Layla, that's right.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is an encouraging place to be, and maybe I can meet some new people through this. So that was my kind of sole purpose of joining, really.
So when you joined, was it a case of that you dipped your toe in, or was it a case of you went balls deep as such and went straight into a challenge?
I went straight into a challenge because I'm motivated by things like that.
Yeah. So
anybody who's watching me this week, I'm trying to do 100-kilometer runs. I like stupid things like that. And so if there's a challenge, and I'm probably signed up to it.
And I'll touch on that later because we have got a question about that as well. So I will get back to that one later on.
So we dive straight into a challenge, thinking that would make me commit.
Okay.
but I didn't commit to that.
What was the reason for that?
I probably still wasn't ready to accept that life needed to change. I was still in unemployment mode.
Okay.
And I was going to the gym regularly. So I was following my JSA plan. I hadn't fixed my diet. So I'd be in and out of the gym by lunchtime, even having spent a whole morning there using the sauna, chilling out. And I'd come home and I would eat. And I would consume a lot of alcohol.
Right.
So yeah, I was still living my previous life for the next sort of 3 months. Until I think I was seeking that. That was my feeling of being alone.
Right.
I'd come home and I'd still be in an empty house. I didn't dip my toe into the community. I didn't use the Facebook group. I started to follow some people on Instagram. And I would see, but it was very early, so I wasn't seeing anything. So there was a bit of a turning point when the end of challenge meetup at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And I started to see from the people that I've been following on Instagram, this community that I was maybe seeking.
Okay.
So that was, but it was also seeing people at their best. Maybe not at where they are now, but they were looking good and where I aspired to be. And I thought, I can't go to one of them till I feel that I've made that change.
So you still, by the sounds of it, you're still suffering from some self-confidence issues. You possibly needed a few more wins.
Yeah, and there was, one. So the same sort of time as I joined, I started to use online dating.
Right.
And I was desperate to meet someone that would mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any luck on dating apps because of the way I looked, I guess.
Okay.
I'd never taken pictures for a number of years. I'm not very good at selfies. Maybe better now with Instagram and things, but yeah, I had no luck on dating sites. And but then I met somebody who I really connected with,
right,
on a real personal level, but that never went anywhere because of whatever reason. I went on holiday, it ended. I came back and I was so motivated to win this person over. And win is, probably the word that I was thinking of, and I know that's not the way that things work, but I was looking to win this person over. She had already had a massive weight loss herself. That I was really inspired by.
Yep.
She was living a healthy lifestyle, and I felt that I needed to become a healthier, fitter, person, and change how I looked. If that was going to, help me with this person, because we connected. So I knew it wasn't that we just didn't get along. It's not that we had one date and it was, we had really connected. So in my head, it was this bit.
Yeah.
And if only I could make myself more attractive. I've learned since then it wasn't just that I needed to change, but that was the launch pad, along with believing that I needed to fit in with the community by being healthier as well. And that's not the case.
So was there anything historically that could have been either impacted your confidence, or anything before the JSA, before Slimming World, which made you want to better yourself?
I lived, so I've always said I'm the most single guy ever. And what I've really, and I think I said when I reposted your question box, I would let everything out in this podcast.
Yeah.
Which means me having to tell my whole story.
And that's what we're here for.
So I think I felt alone for a lot longer than I thought because of the life I've lived. So I've always had a really good, close group of friends, but I've always been missing that one thing from my life.
Yeah.
And it's because I think I lived quite a secluded life. So right back to me, I was very career focused from a very young age. 16, 17, I've put my balls to the wall and worked hard for some success. I was never that successful at school. I played golf and I put all my passion into that as a youth, but I was never that successful. I've always felt like I was the little boy at Scout Awards or school awards that would know I wasn't ever winning anything or wasn't getting the award, but I'd stand there proud as pants hoping that this was my moment, and I never got that. So I think I was seeking that from a career, and I was very successful in my career because my mum and dad always taught me to have a really strong work ethic. But I found community in things at work, but I gave my all from that age to the point when I became a store manager and I had been given this responsibility. There's your keys, there's your shop. Worked for a business that was very much, this is your business, make it work.
Yep, like a kind of franchise.
It wasn't a franchise, but it was just the ethos within the business. And I worked for Virgin in a very young.
Virgin are very empowering.
Yeah. So I took that very seriously, and I started to probably work way too many hours to make sure that I was successful, and I was. Probably looking back now, I didn't need to work as many hours as I did to do that, but that's where I was. To the point where I'm saying I worked 80 hours a week from 2008 to January 2019.
Wow.
And so all but a couple of months in between a couple of jobs, I never changed that attitude.
Other than eating and sleeping, there's not much time left in the day and left in the.
I wondered why I was single. Wasn't just that. So in 2011, a friend moved into my house. I was renting the house.
Yeah.
And this is a friend that I hadn't really seen for about 5 years. So just about maybe 3 or 4 months before he moved in, we reconnected. And we went back to the same lifestyle that we had lived when we were 17 or 18.
Party hard. Party hard.
Party hard. Party very hard. So, and we were both had good money as well.
No responsibilities, no commitments, no.
So we drank a lot of alcohol, and I'm talking about we drank probably equivalent of 7 or 8 beers a night, and we could probably finish between us 3 or 4 bottles of booze a week, liquor.
I think Simon touched on that, didn't he, in his podcast, that effectively you could class that as being a functional alcoholic without actually realizing.
Yeah.
Everyone imagines an alcoholic as someone walking down the street with a can at 8 o'clock in the morning or a brown paper bag full of whiskey, with a bottle of whiskey inside. But, I think Simon hit the nail on the head. You come home from work, you have 5-6 cans a night, and then you wake up fine the next day because your body's just so used to it.
The amount of hangovers I've had where I've still gone to work and to do it. I've always had a good kind of, from my upbringing, I guess. You don't drink in the morning.
Yeah.
But if you're waiting until you get home tonight and you've got enough booze in your system that lasts you through the next day, it's
Yeah.
And we lived the lavish lifestyle. We both were kind of foodies, so we would visit all the Michelin star restaurants. We'd go out for breakfast. It was just, we felt like we were ballers, absolute ballers,
living like kings.
Yeah, and on top of that, he was a cannabis user,
right?
And I became a cannabis user from that.
Right. Okay.
So I had been when I was young, when I used to hang out with him. When I moved away from that, that never continued with me, but it came back. So that was a daily thing as well, and it was every day. So not only was I boozed, I was high as a kite as well.
And do you resent your friend ever coming back into your life at all, or is it just you accept it as one of those things that has happened, you're now able to get over it?
I will always take responsibility for my own actions. There's no resentment there. He was a very good friend and he helped me through a lot of hard times.
Yeah.
That was there, and it was just the life we were living.
What did you go through any hard times which kind of led you to where you are now? What's the story behind that?
So I lived that life of that level of addiction, I guess.
Yeah.
And built up a huge amount of debt. So almost £40,000 worth of debt. So not only were we living a lavish lifestyle food-wise, was living a lavish lifestyle of TVs, games, consoles, the lot. It was about
kind of living beyond your means, which I know James uses that as an analogy, isn't it? Which is kind of like
well beyond means.
Bang,
Like, it can spiral out of control when there's interest in everything being added on. But I'd had that debt problem previous anyway. I'd had that since I was 18 years old. Paid it off, got a consolidation loan, and but it was manageable till I then added on this lavish lifestyle, this whole, addiction. And that 2015, I realized I needed to do something and joined the gym, probably seeking an escapism, being able to, because I'd come home and it would be like, bang, let's go. And there's a lyric in a song. One of my favorite bands is a band called Bring Me the Horizon. Most people will think I'm mental and I love my metal music too much, but there's a lyric in the song that says, "Don't call it a party because it never stops."
Yeah. That's how you felt, was it?
You what? Sorry.
How you felt? Is that how you like? Just because it just became the norm as such. It wasn't a party. You came home every night. You had a joint. You had 8 cans. It was the norm. Bed at 2 o'clock. Up at 6. Repeat.
Yeah, but we treated it as if it was a party.
Right.
Yeah, there was always other people around our house. It was, it was the party house.
Yeah.
But that lyric sticks in my head because that song came out well later, and I just think back to it. Actually, it wasn't just their party; it was life. So yeah, September 2015, I tried to join a gym and maybe seek some escapism. I realized that I couldn't control my debt. So I went and sorted that out, got a debt management plan, took responsibility for it, and started to pay it back. But still didn't really change how I was living. And then in the May 2016, I lost my mum. So she had been unwell for a long time previous, and I think I'd maybe started to grieve when I found out she had uncurable brain cancer.
Right.
So I live in Bristol, she lived in Scotland. There was a 400-mile distance, and if we didn't go 10 days without speaking to each other, that wasn't abnormal.
No, I'm the same. Like,
Um,
every 3 weeks, I'll speak to my mum. Like, if I rang her every 2 days, she'd think I'm either something was wrong or I wanted money. So,
yeah, that's pretty much it. And me and my mum, when I lived at home, when I was a kid, we couldn't be in the same room more than 5 minutes without really falling out.
yeah,
To point really brutal arguments. My dad would always feel like he was a negotiator between the two. Will you calm down or will you calm down? One of you has got to. So when I moved out, our relationship fixed, but it was because there was this distance, and so I loved.
it's exactly the same. I live 130 miles away. My mum would do anything for me. I would do anything for her, but put us in the same house for more than 24 hours and we are at each other's throats. So it just works, doesn't it? It does
We'd
work.
be fine and go on a family holiday, and within 2 days it was full-blown rage.
Yeah, yeah, all over that.
But yeah, and I loved her dearly. But yeah, I think I didn't start to. I grieved because I knew she was going.
Yeah.
I wasn't there every day. Like my brother and my dad were there every day, going into hospital. And those guys did an amazing job at being there for her every day. You're stressful times. I didn't have to deal with that. I was in my bubble, blazed out my head, and pissed most of the time.
So you were still working 80-hour weeks, but then you were still effectively burning the candle at both ends because you were doing all the hours, you going home, drinking and smoking, etc.
Yeah, I remember going up to see her, and I was doing work at her bedside in the hospital. And I would say to anybody, if you're in that situation, the money you're earning is not worth your mum's life. Because I effectively said to my mum, £50 an hour or whatever it was I was earning was more important than you.
But do you think, I think, I don't think that, for me listening to that, I don't think there's a reason to be so hard on yourself, but do you think it was a coping mechanism?
I do. I think I was just so, I'd lived that life for 8 years.
Yeah.
That was just what I did. I'd go on holiday, I'd take my laptop with me. I wouldn't spend time with my family. I'd be up every morning working. Addicted to the job. I think it was an addiction. My staff would always say, you work, as much on holidays as you do when you're here.
Was it just you and your brother, was it? And your dad?
And my sister as well.
Just are you the eldest?
And I'm the eldest. So, so when she passed, I took on the responsibility of trying to support with the affairs and just left my business head on. I didn't really, and I cried and I grieved.
Yeah.
First part of the loss, but then I went into business mode, tried to sort that out. I remember the day before the funeral, maybe a couple of days before the funeral, my dad was just trying to keep his mind distracted. My mum had said our dying wish was to make sure that we all had a house.
Yeah.
And my dad was talking about, okay, now we need to think about, I was dealing with the affairs or whatever, so okay, there needs to be some money apportioned for you to buy a house, and I just remember saying to my dad, I can't buy a house. I can't buy a house. And I kept repeating it, and he kept, why can't you buy a house? There'll be enough money for you. You'll get enough. And I kept saying, it's because I don't have enough deposit. Well, there'll be enough deposit. Yeah, I had to then tell the truth of, I'm not mortgageable. What do you mean you're not mortgageable? I know your salary. I know that you'll get a mortgage. No, Dad, it's not that. I've got this insurmountable debt problem that unless I fix that and wait what I believed was 6 years,
I
wasn't going to get through that. Fortunately, there is other ways and means of making that happen. But, and my dad supported me to fix my debt problem so that I could get a house. Put some conditions into that if I to go and get counselling. around my debt problem, and I did, and that helped me with my financial errors. Spoke a lot to the council, even, you know, and I think I told everything to the council as well about my life and what I was living, and eventually was discharged from that, or the money from, you know, the offering from my work stopped. I didn't really change anything throughout that time till about the September, well, it's probably till for another year, 2017, because by then I bought my house, and I started to do it up top to bottom, and that was with the support of my dad. I could not have done it without the support of my dad, because actually he could see from the outside there was a lot more going on. I was living in probably the only word to describe it is squalor. This had been a rented house, a party house, 2 husky dogs, never been looked after. And then I'd lived in it for a year by myself, to the point that there was pizza boxes stacked up, there was chocolate wrappers everywhere.
By the sounds of it, didn't have time to tire you. You were working 80 hours a week, and then you were coming home and partying, like sleeping, getting up for work, and the cycle would have just gone on and on and on and on and on and on.
Well, I continued. So when my friend moved out, the party house stopped, but my drinking and smoking continued.
Right.
And I would come home and work at a laptop in this space I'd created at the back of my house, which was 2 meters by 3 meters, blocked off from anywhere else, half a meter from the fridge. And I'd sit there and work till 2 a.m. from the minute I got in, continually working, creating work for myself, making spreadsheets, doing stuff that was just mad at what I was doing. And I would never have thought about smoking at work, but I was effectively by what I was doing when I got home.
So you're working 80 hours a week, you're not getting much sleep, you're technically functioning alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
You are smoking cannabis.
Yeah. Did
this have any effects on you, medically or psychologically, or, how did this impact? How are you able to function? That's what I'm flabbergasted at that. Like,
I guess I was only functioning in one part of my life. I was functioning at work.
Yeah.
Everything else was, if you were scoring things out of 0 to 10, I'd say work was at a 10. Well, in my head, it was at a 10. It was probably only a 6 or 7. My rest of my life was at a 0.
So how did this impact your health?
So in the May of 2018, I had a panic attack one night. Just as I was putting my last joint out, and I was halfway to bed, I had this panic attack. I don't know where it came from. I was working under work had also got a lot more stressful, partly probably because I wasn't able to cope with it.
Yeah.
There was a number of things I was dealing with. I was dealing with a court case, through work tribunal, somebody that I'd been managing for a long time. I was chasing a number. I knew that my job might not be there. We'd sort of got wind of redundancies and change in structure, and I was desperately trying to make sure to prove that I was of value to the business.
Yeah.
And so I had this panic attack late at night, and it lasted from about 11 a.m. to maybe 5 or 6 in the morning. I had so much so that I thought I was having a heart attack. which is a common thing of a panic attack. I laid out shoes at the front door. I unlocked the door. I had 999 ready, dialed on my phone. I had got out of my bed and gone downstairs and was lying on the sofa. I tried to make myself feel better, put on the Fools and Horses late on at night and the TV. Till eventually it stopped and I fell asleep. And from that moment, literally the next day or the next couple of days, I started to create this sense of what I can only describe as deja vu. So I
tell your family about this.
Had
you, because of the work and the time you were spending at work after the funeral, did that change? Could you feel that you could confide in your family or not? Well, you know what?
No, nothing changed. I did. My relationship with my dad was more open, but I still had this secret. And to be fair, my dad still doesn't know, and I phoned him tonight to say that I was going to talk about it in what I feel is a comfortable space.
Yep.
Would he listen to the podcast when it's launched, or when it goes out, and then we can talk about it, because it's what I believe is a dark secret I've been carrying around for the last 10 years almost, and I think it will give some understanding to my family.
Yeah.
I'd say that I confided in my brother a bit, but my brother's too scared to tell me if I'm doing wrong because he's youngest. So he might say to me, "Oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing that," but he would never have said, "Whoa, this is," and he didn't know the extent of it because he would only see me for 10 minutes or not 10 minutes, a couple of days at a time. He was still living in Scotland. So it was, it's a dark secret. And actually, I can already feel a sense of relief just talking about that.
That's great.
All my friends know, my best friend, absolutely saw all of that and tried to support me through it. But when I developed this deja vu, I was a couple of weeks away from going on holiday. And when I talk about this deja vu, I mean deja vu 30 times a day, to the point that I started to believe I was reliving my life. Everywhere I went, I'd go to a business meeting where I knew I hadn't been there before. And I remember talking about it to colleagues, and they joked. I worked in a sales environment. It was a big, boisterous laugh. And they were like, "Oh, well, tell us the lottery numbers. Give us the horses for tomorrow."
Yeah, good. And do you know what? It's stuff like that. It's kind of work camaraderie, isn't it? And
yeah.
It's just the banter. I hate the term banter, but like it's the banter, isn't it? It's the work. Like, you've worked with people for God knows how many years. They know that there are certain boundaries that they can push, so they will inevitably just take the piss out of you.
But inside, I was feeling this was scary.
Yeah.
I'd be okay, and then in the moment I'd be like, I've been here before. We've had this conversation, and it would be like the smallest of details I could remember. It wasn't just an overall feeling. Yeah. I remember this exact conversation. I remember that person being sat there, and I couldn't deal with that. But then I went on holiday with my dad and my brother, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going away for 2 weeks, 10 days or whatever it was. Maybe it's the weed. It was my first time I thought, maybe it's the weed.
And it also could be trauma as well. Stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, PTSD type traumas and
trauma of losing your mum.
Mm-hmm. Trauma of living my life in a psychological nightmare.
Yeah, the drinking, the substance abuse sounds worse, you know.
Yeah.
Weed.
Because actually the one thing that I never did was any morning weed. So it wasn't the gateway drug that people would say it was. And it's not, I'd say to anybody, it may have one point been seen as a safe drug, back to Woodstock days or whatever, where it wasn't as prevalent. It is a psychological nightmare. And the strength of it is now is not a safe drug. And I can be an advocate for that. And I see young people smoking it now, and it's a very open thing, especially in Bristol. It's a very open culture in Bristol, and I smell it and I see it, and I want to go over to those young people saying, do you want to know where that can end up?
I used to smoke it a bit at uni, but it didn't have an effect on me. It was weird. Like I used to live with 6 housemates, and there was one of them, he used to bring the toaster and the kettle into the front room. It was that baked. Like, I've seen him go down to the shop, buy 12 jam tarts, a loaf of bread, bring the toaster and the kettle in the front room and just spend all day there, just like not even move, But I experienced it once in Amsterdam, and I didn't smoke it. I had a brownie. I was due on the ferry the next 12 hours. I can't remember getting home on the ferry. Just can't. So
from that deja vu and everything, I tried to. So I went on holiday. Started to mention to my dad, I felt better for a couple of days, and then it came back.
Right.
Like, I've been in this place before, been on this holiday, we've been on this walk before, And I started to mention it to my dad and my brother. But have we been on this? And they'd be like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" And I'd keep it quiet. And then I'd mention I've been starting to get this thing. And they were like, "Okay, you're stressed from work." So I came home and I landed about tea time. And a friend of mine had said, "I'll pick you up from the airport." And I remember driving back, and he said, "Are you going to come around for a cup of tea?" It's only a tea time flight. That would be a perfectly reasonable thing to. I was like, "Oh no, mate, just drop me off. I've got some stuff to do." And he was like, "What's your last day of your holiday? Just come for." And I was like, "No, mate, just drop me off." Which is an incredibly rude thing to do to somebody who's just offered to pick you up from the airport.
Yeah.
And I got home. And the condition of my house wasn't really. It was still in a building site type. Walked through the front door, through the kitchen, back to my little office space that I had, and I rolled another joint. And boom, second panic attack.
So it's kind of you'd been away, you'd have a bit of a change of scenery. Sounds to me that your brain just said, right, your actions from getting back home straight away, it's not you. It's like you need to change something. Yeah,
it was a distress signal.
Because honestly, the body is an amazing thing, and I don't think the studies out there know. It's the tip of the iceberg. The studies out there, like what the body does,
and we don't know about the brain 10%. Yeah, we just don't. It's an untapped minefield. So at that moment, I decided enough was enough. I was never going to smoke cannabis again. And I can safely say that 2 years and 2 weeks, roughly, down the line, I haven't. I've never even been near it.
Amazing.
Not thought about it. There's a fear. There's a fear of it being that doing that again will ruin my life.
Fear is an amazing stimulant, isn't it? It's
and I've got that same thing about my weight loss. I've got a fear if I have a bad week, shit, that could suddenly be it again. And that's when I catch myself and I fix things.
Yeah.
So I've never been back to it. I went and I took back what I had left to the dealer. hoping that he would give me some money about for it.
Wishful thinking there, I think.
Yeah. And he said, no, but there's like 12 cases of water at my front door. If you want them, you can have them. Which seems like a crazy thing to trade. You know, I guess currency is only trade. But he'd had a new water filter fitted in his house, and the cases of water he'd ordered he no longer needed. And actually, he was probably looking for somebody to take it out of his front hall. So I wandered back out of that house with 12 cases of water and started my detox.
The detox.
Of living with salad.
How many bottles are in this case?
Like 24 bottles.
Jesus.
So I started eating salad and living on about between 800 and 1,000 calories a day. And drinking pure water.
You need up by walking to the toilet every 10 minutes.
Yes. So I did that, and that was probably about a month I lived like that and looked great. Yeah, I was still doing the man versus fat football. I was losing all this weight. I was, and then, but over that time, the deja vu never left me.
Right.
So hang on, I fixed this. I've got to stop doing this thing. I'm living this perfect life. My brain's still screwing with me.
But you've got rid of effectively the cannabis, but you've gone back to your own. You're still going back to your own lifestyle, but just you're still doing 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Still drinking.
Not throughout that first month.
Right.
But then that came back in. In fact, I started to drink more because I couldn't understand this deja vu. I was banging on the doctor's door asking for an MRI scan. I think I went 6 times to try and get an answer because they couldn't give me an answer for it. They were looking at me like, no, I don't think it's mental. I don't think, and I was honest with the doctor about how I'd lived my life and what I'd done. Okay, we'll put you on a counselling list. Don't worry about that. I've got a counsellor at work I can use, and it's quicker and private. But I started to try and do my own research because going to the counsellor, doing CBT, never gave me any fix from that as well. So I started to try, and when you're living in that, you're looking for an answer. You want somebody to say, it's this. We can help with that. And I couldn't find that. I only found one article on Google that said brain tumor.
Wow.
And it was a story of somebody who'd been walking up underneath a tree by an ambulance crew, having been there for a number of days, just closed-eyed, to have living a life in their head.
And when you read that, obviously you alluded to that your mum had brain cancer.
Yeah.
Was that kind of like setting off the alarms? And
certainly was. So I was banging on the doctor's door to get an MRI scan, and eventually I got one doctor to actually, I went through all the doctors. I was like, no, don't give me them, give me them. Was one doctor actually sat down and listened to me and said, all right, I'll get you an MRI scan. She knew in her head it wasn't anything, but she said to me, will this help settle it? I was like, yeah, it will give me an answer either way. Had the brain scan? No, nothing wrong with your brain. No lumps, no nothing. How
did that kind of drive you back just to normal, like back to the drinking, back to the, you just think, well, there's nothing.
It gave me one answer, but it didn't give me an answer.
Yeah.
It ruled out one thing. So I continued to try to live with it, went to counselling, sought out a friend on Facebook who had been posting a lot about mental health and had been doing his own work in mental health. I said, a friend, we'd lost a lot of contact. I used to work with him. And I said, he'd mentioned that meditation had helped with his life.
Yeah.
And I was always an avid follower of business people on YouTube and things like that. And they're big advocates of meditation. And I was like, well, I'm interested in it. And I gave this cover story about that. So he put me on to, we had a chat and I opened up to him. He put me on to his meditation mentor and I started to see her. That helped for calming me down. And she's the only person to date who's actually been able to say, and have not actually diagnose it because she can't do that, but she had read something because she was really intrigued by this thing. She's big into her mental health, and she came back to me one week and said, I've read something somewhere and I would like you to read it. Here's the passage. So she can't say that's it, but I read the passage and it said that deja vu could be a signal of trauma. And that was this calming moment for me.
Yeah.
It made me realize it's probably the trauma of the lifestyle I'd lived, the trauma of not dealing with my mum, and yeah, starting to maybe understand it a little bit. And I still have it today. Since then, I've been and sought more answers, and I've was told I had a heart problem probably back in November. Now I mentioned on the podcast last night, actually I was discharged from the heart surgery on Friday with not having any problems.
That's amazing news, mate. Well done.
And do you know what? That allows me to just go and get on with my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, they did tell me that from my most recent MRI scan, there is some narrowing of vessels in my head, and that could be what's causing the mental confusion.
Wow.
So I guess it's kind of like another answer. So that's been a long journey, but all of that has led to me making a change with my weight and my lifestyle and just getting my whole life on track. And that's all been through JSA, having a community, having people to support me with that, meeting new people. All of that's come from being in this rock bottom place for a number of years.
Which, if you kind of take a few steps back to where you are now, you bought a house, the environment's improving, you're living healthier. It's amazing, isn't it? What your environment, all those three can do.
Yeah, that journey when I wrote it all down has just been like a real, and I've got a sense of relief just mentioning that, knowing that it's going to go out into the public eye, and there's no.
That's great, mate. I'm buzzing that you felt like you could express yourself, either be it to me or be it to someone, because if it's helping you, like you say, you set this podcast up to help others, but in the circle that it is, it's actually it's come round and it's helping you, which is amazing to hear. So,
and do you know what? If I was to still Google severe deja vu, I don't think I'd find an answer.
No.
And maybe somebody who listens will think I've got that problem. And if anybody does listen and wants to talk about any of that, I'm always going to be open and honest, and I'll always support you. Because I know what living with that does. And it can be a real dark place at times.
So if we go back to your timeline, where are we now? Is it beginning of January 19, was it? Did you say?
Yeah, probably. Well, I'd say that we're. I got through all of that. Was made redundant in January 19. And
so, considering you were working 80 hours a week to now go into redundancy, where effectively, did you get a job straight away? What?
No, so I knew it was happening for probably almost 6 months.
Yeah.
And there was always a chance it might not happen, and we tried to fight for our jobs, but there became a point about 3 months before where we knew it wasn't ever going to save our jobs. And I knew that I needed to, as a final chapter for that, I needed to close that door anyway. So I chose a redundancy. My family were all like, "You're crazy. Never choose a redundancy. There's a job there for you." There was a job offer, but I needed out. I needed time to go in, regroup, and understand where I was and what I was going to do. I needed some time out, longer than a couple of weeks holiday.
Yeah, 80 hours a week for 8 or 9 years. This will do that to you, mate.
Yeah.
So you've got this thing. You, for example, put it on a pie chart. 100 odd hours a week, 100 odd hours a week. 80 of those are work. So what have you replaced that with now?
So I've now got a balanced lifestyle. So my average sleep now is probably 8 to 9 hours sleep a night.
Right.
Which actually I've realized as a taller person, I need more sleep than some people. Which I never knew before, but I've researched it. And
really, I'm 6. I'm exactly 6. I get like 5.5 hours sleep.
Well, and I was always able to survive on that, less than that. But I've seen the benefits of more sleep. There's days that I don't. There's some days that I love to get up early. There's summertime I sleep less. It's lighter. I'm actually really productive if I get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.
Yep.
I can get stuff done. I just feel productive. But I know now that means earlier nights. But I'm still not very good at doing that. But I'd say that on good, when I've got a good balance, I've got good sleep. But I replace it now. I've got a social life. I see people. I actually sometimes find that there's days where I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I've got this time, more so in lockdown, I guess, and you're difficult to think back. But I chose the new job I chose when I eventually went back into work about 3 months later, when I realized actually I need to work. But I was quite purposeful of the job I chose. I took a step back and I chose a job that was going to just pay me a wage that was sufficient for me to live on so that I could have the lifestyle around it. Rather than choosing a job where it was career driven and I would need, I knew that I would go back to running 100 miles an hour to make myself successful. I chose a job that I'd be, competent at, and I knew how to do it. So I replaced that with my health. Replaced that other time with being able to meal prep. I replaced it with training. I replaced it with personal development outside of work. And like I said, social time. I do more now. I built up, for having been a member of the gym since 2015, I've only really built up a network in that gym since probably November last year.
Right.
And now I've got, like my running partner is a member from the gym. Other people that I would now call friends are people from the gym, because I would go at the same time 2 or 3 times a week. It was the same people in there. So I built up another community through that. I feel like I now have a balanced lifestyle.
So when you were made redundant, what happened then?
I went the other way. I became a lazy, and I decided in this time I've always wanted to do an Ironman, which is, for anybody who doesn't know who's listening, is a triathlon of swim, bike, and run.
Yeah.
The top event. It's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and you finish with a marathon run. And the time limit is 17 hours. And that's like a life ambition for me to do. which is crazy, right? Because I'm at a lower level. But I thought, well, they reckon it's 6 months to 12 months training, like 5 to 6 hours a day, 6 days a week.
So
It becomes a job.
it.
So I thought I had enough money from being made redundant to last a year.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to go and do. I was going to be able to compete in an Ironman. But I would be done in the gym at kind of lunchtime, finished up, and I would come home and I would eat. I felt like I could eat way more because I was training so hard. But I also was still drinking quite heavily because I'd get to 5 o'clock and I'd be like, I'm bored.
So effectively what you've been doing is you've still got the constant of the drink. Instead of working hard, you've been training hard.
Yeah.
So you haven't really replaced your time or time managed. So I suspect that you were still reaching, because you didn't have enough time, you were still reaching for the takeaway menus, you were still going to...
Because I also had funds as well.
Yep.
And yeah, eventually, like I said, I got to the stage that because I wasn't having any social contacts during that time, because everybody's at work Monday to Friday.
Yep.
You're in the gym, sitting on a bike. You're not speaking to people. I just felt like I was becoming dumb. I tried to have a conversation with people, and my words weren't even coming out. My intellect had gone down. My attention span had gone down. So I knew I needed a career or a job. I knew I needed something to go to.
Right.
But that's when so I joined. I didn't start my new job till I joined. So I joined JSA in the April, still made redundant. Applied all the JSA training to my gym life. Went on, met this girl, went on holiday. The day I came back from holiday, the day after I came back from holiday, I was starting my new job. And I went into that job with, I made a decision that life had to change.
Effectively a proper clean slate. You come back from holiday, first day new job, and you think,
new pencil case, new backpack.
Pencil case. That was effectively smashed in after 3 days, wasn't it? Days at high school.
But also because I had this drive of wanting to be attractive. That was the big difference.
And do you think that was your why?
That was my why, along with the health side. Yeah, I still needed to fix this. And there was something that I thought of. So when I lost my mum like I said, she was 62, I was 32, and I thought 30 years left. So that was in 2016. There was a realization, I think, probably on the anniversary of my mum's death, which was the May. The penny dropped that 10% of that time that I might only have left had gone.
Wow.
And I was like, in that time, you had this thought, you need to be different. You might only have 30 years left. And the next time you thought of it, 10% of it's gone. And I think that was this wake-up call. There's only 90% of that left now. What are you going to do? When actually, you've got to fix yourself before any of the other stuff that you want to do in your head is going to come to fruition.
So that was the May. So you're probably like 6 weeks into your first challenge, halfway through, and you're only finding your why there. So is that probably why you felt like you didn't commit fully, but you knew that if you went a bit further, then you would be able to commit fully?
Yeah, it was, and I think I I had this thing in my head of, oh, you've got a holiday, new job, let's make a fresh start then.
Yeah.
That's a good date to start. And it was, I came back and I started my new job and I had my packed lunch ready. Probably the first time in forever that I'd made a packed lunch. I was eating sandwiches and everything before. And I was just ready to make that change. I made a commitment to myself. And there's something that, now I don't know if I made it up in my head or if somebody said it to me, but you can't commit to anybody or anything else until you can commit to yourself.
It rings a bell.
And,
I don't know who it is, but
I'm gonna take it. It's mine.
If you got from someone, it does make a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's really. And there was another thing that my mum said to me, but actually I didn't take it on board because I was still living this party lifestyle. But it was just me and her in the room, and she was really tired, and she rolled over to me and she said, and I said, "Do you need me to come home and help Dad?" Yeah, and probably should have asked my dad that more than asked my mum. And she said, "Don't stop living your life just because I'm losing mine." And something for somebody to say when they're on their deathbed. It's a very selfless thing to say.
Do you know what? My mum always used to say that I've got a third eye and I can see what you're doing. And do you know what? That sounds like something that she knows. She'll have known something has been up with you.
Yeah.
So that is probably just her way of saying, she's mustered enough strength, enough courage to actually just say that to you.
Yeah, definitely. She knew there was something up. So your mums know you, generally.
They do.
Yeah. It used to be catch me out with what I was up to, but she knew that there was something more going on, and and I kind of recalled that as I was coming out of this haze and this bubble, and I didn't start grieving till I think there was a big turning point actually that Christmas. So I'd just been chatting to my dad, and I'd said, look, I haven't even dealt with Mum. I haven't even looked at any pictures of her in 3 years almost. And my dad must have had that conversation with my sister, because my Christmas present on that year from my sister and her family was a picture frame, and my niece walked over to give it to me, and it was all wrapped up, and she was like, "It's a picture frame." I was like, "No, it's a picture." And I was like, "Yeah, no shit." Like that's obviously. And immediately I knew what was in that picture frame. I knew it was family photographs because I mentioned it, and I've burst into tears on the sofa, and that was the first time I actually think I started to grieve.
Right.
And that was probably a turning point, and maybe took me that then getting made redundant, and there was that 6-month period of life changing to the point that then I could by the July or whenever that next challenge started, I was ready to go and make a change in my life with my health.
So come July, what was it in July that you thought, right, JSA, let's have you?
Watching Cheltenham.
Right.
And then watching IFS, and thought, I want to be part of that.
So what was it necessarily about seeing Cheltenham or seeing IFS? Because I'm presuming when you say see it, you're watching it through 4 inches of plastic.
Yeah. It just looked fun. It looked like everybody knew each other. It looked like everybody was supporting each other. And I could see that these were all people from 4 corners of the UK and 4 corners of the globe coming together and just having a good time.
Yeah.
I've never done the 1830s holidays or group meetups like that. I've never traveled. And I kind of just found it appealing, and it was going to take a box for me, maybe where I could meet new like-minded people who I knew were, when they're not doing that, they're working their ass off to, win at their goals. And I knew that could help me keep accountable. So I was like, next
did that
event, I'm
give you
going.
the proverbial shove to challenge, or how, was there anything else that it kind of encouraged you to do?
It just made me commit to looking better. So it made me watch my calories. It made me do my plan. It made me take my pictures, because I was just, right, this is it. I'm doing this. And as I sort of mentioned before, if I make a decision I'm doing something, I've always done that. If I say I'm doing something, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
There's no turning back. If I'm half committed to something, you'll know about it, because it's half-arsed. I'll put something out there and I'll pretend that everybody doesn't know about it and I'll forget about it. But if I'm on it, I am balls deep, as they say. So, I'm an all or nothing person. I know that much. You're either getting all of me or you're getting none of me.
So you've, at this point, what's this? So like September, October, you start to embed yourself into kind of the community. I see for me, that I think more of the community is on Instagram, but obviously there is the Facebook group as well. Are you kind of throwing yourself into both?
More just Insta.
Right.
And it was the time of I knew that London Live was the next one, so I bought a ticket very early for that.
On your own? No one else? Just
no one else. Bought a ticket for that, joined the group, found out where everybody was staying, and I'd made the decision I was going. And by buying a ticket, I was committed.
Yeah.
I never thought once about not going. I'm okay with going into new situations. I'm a salesman. I can talk to people. So it's I can knock on council estate doors.
Yeah.
And ask them if they want to buy Sky TV at 8 o'clock in the middle of a November night.
Tough gig.
I'm not worried if I'm gonna be able to walk into a room full of people and meet. But it doesn't mean it's not nervous actually when you get there. But yeah, because I bought the ticket, I committed to it. That meant I had to go looking my best. And then when I arrived, I met Sam straight away. She didn't recognize me. Obviously, I recognized her. She gave me a massive hug, and Craig Davids, and we were on our way.
That's it, isn't it? That's the standard JSAM meet initiation, isn't it?
Hug, Craig David, game on.
Right just down the hatch.
So then, but there was a realization at that time that I'd done well. So I walked into the first bar, and I saw Paul, who's Bristol, and he was going to go with me and change his plans. Probably thought I was a right dickhead. That's in the words of Paul, probably. But
Paul's like,
but we, I met two ladies that actually I'll never forget. That they were looking at me, and they had their phone out, and they kept looking at me, and I didn't notice till the person I was with was like, "Mate, those two women keep looking at you," and I was like, "What?" And then I was like, "Oh, hey," and they pointed the phone at me, and they were like, "Is that you?" And I was like, went over, I had a look, I was like, "Yeah, that's me," and they were like, "You need to change your profile picture," and I was like, "Oh, right," and they were like, "Because you look nothing like that anymore. You look amazing," and I just got this confidence boost.
Oh.
They collared me again in the live and was like, pinned me up against the wall almost, and was like, "We're going to take a picture. That can be your new profile picture." And my confidence levels from that moment were just, risen straight away. And
did you stop at London Live, or have you been to any more since?
So yeah, a couple of weeks later was the Bristol meetup.
Right. Oh yeah, that
was the challenge, because the live obviously wasn't an end of challenge meetup. And I lost more weight over that couple of weeks. And I remember Steve Shrinking, the Irish guy.
Yes.
And Jane, Karma Yourself.
Oh yeah.
Sitting down and we were chatting, and they both started. One was sat on one side, and one was sat on the other, and they both started pulling on my jeans. And they were like, "You need to buy some new clothes." I was like, "Oh," and they were like, "Because those are falling off of you."
You always get a bit of honesty off how
yeah. So that was another confidence boost. It was like, okay, I'm ready to buy new clothes. And then when I went to try on new clothes, I think maybe even a week later, I was like, and I was at one point asking if the clothes shop where I buy my clothes, because I have to buy a longer length, I was asking if they, High and Mighty, did they do a size 54 waist in my leg length? And I got told, that's the biggest we do. You better stop putting on more weight. And that was years before. Because I always saw the same guy, and we had a bit of a relationship. And I always felt that I was just a big guy. I never really saw a problem with having to go and buy bigger clothes. But when I tried on these clothes afterwards, it took me forever in this one shop to find the right size, because I went and tried on a 48 because I thought I might be in the fours. They fell off me. I went and tried. I thought, I'll get the 46. They fell off me. Till I found a 42. And then I was trying on 3XL t-shirts. Too big, too big. Suddenly I'm down to an XL tall fit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't realise.
Mate, you're walking around like a dog with two dicks.
Yes. I felt that was just a massive realization of, you've done something here.
Yeah, and that's good. And like you say, you that encouragement from Steve and Jane, you might not have even realized that you needed to, because you just assumed that everything was fine, and to you it was. But that gentle push and encouragement, what you tend to get from the members, like they're not shy coming forward. Some of them, and some might come forward, be more forward than others, and it might seem a bit brash, but it's their way of saying, do you know what, you look amazing, go out, see what, buy yourself some new clobber. Yeah. So that's London Live, it's Bristol. I believe, did you go to the book signing as well?
Did, yeah.
January?
And all of those events, I just felt like I was getting further and further into the community. That was only in January, the book signing. It seems such a long time ago. Well, 6 months ago, really.
So when the meets tend to get organised, you like the newbies as such, as the label. I don't like the label, but we might judge. The newer members of the JSA, you always tend to find that they're kind of sitting on the fence about it, or I don't want to go on my own. You were there once, I was there once. You tell me what advice would you give them?
Go.
That's it, one word, go.
Go. And you will have one of the best nights of your life, I think. If you've not made any progress, you'll speak to people and find out that actually we all go through that. If you've made loads of progress, you'll get this confidence boost. If you're needing new friendship in your life, of the right positive people around you, you'll find that. You'll be able to put names to faces of people you're actually probably communicating with through Instagram. You'll come away with a confidence boost, and I'm sure that you will come away with friends for life.
Do you believe the confidence aided you in setting up this podcast? Or going back to obviously Sam's question at the beginning, where she's asked you where the seed was planted, and effectively you've got to water a seed, haven't you, to make it grow? Do you think that confident that is effectively the water to make this podcast grow?
Yeah, because I wanted to tell the positive journeys of other members that I knew and saw through social media.
Yeah.
If I hadn't have had that positive journey myself, I wouldn't have had the confidence to go and do it, because I would be sat here as the imposter. So yeah, I don't even think I would have thought of it, because I don't think I would have also been as passionate about it, because I've seen the success from following it and being part of it. I'm really passionate about it. And I would tell everybody that this is a positive way to go if you're looking for a physical and mental transformation, because I think you'll see both. And I mentioned it on the podcast last night, the mini series, that if you have a mental transformation, it can often help your physical transformation. And if you have a physical transformation, it can often help your mental transformation.
I would 100% agree with that. 100. I think, speaking from personal experience, and I've done it on a couple of my posts, that it definitely can come hand in hand. It is 100% true, in my opinion.
Yeah, and mine, and I'm sure other people would echo that.
Now, I've seen your confidence grow. Do you know how? Because I've seen you bought yourself a pair of budgie smugglers, which, from my experience, that was the moment where I felt, do you know what? I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. I'm confident now to rock these. And that was back in January 2019. And I still had quite a bit of weight to lose.
So they're still slightly too small. Ta-da!
Get in.
As so anybody who's only listening on Spotify, you would have missed me holding up my budgie smugglers. So they're only for my transformation posts at the moment. I have wore swimming trunks or budgie smugglers since November in the pool, because I was training for a triathlon, and my triathlon coach said to me, "Do you want to save 10 seconds on your 100-meter time? Get rid of the shorts."
Less drag, isn't there? There's less flapping about.
The drag on a pair of shorts. Well, if you ever did lifeguard sessions as a kid, which I did, you put your t-shirt and your shorts on, and it was harder to swim. And the reason they made you get the brick off the bottom of the pool like that was because that's how you might have to do it. Well, yeah.
Honestly, the second challenge I did, I started swimming a lot, and I was in my shorts and stuff like that. And I thought, I've got these. Do you know what? I've got these budgie smugglers at home. I'll go swimming. And honestly, it sheared minutes.
Yeah.
Sheared minutes off my time, off for like me 1500 meter time. So now I know you don't always swim in the pool as well. You're an open water swimmer. Have you worn them there yet, or is it too cold? I'm not familiar with the open water etiquette.
So, yes, I have. When I first started swimming open water, I was wetsuit only.
Right.
And I've struggled to find a proper swim wetsuit in my size.
Okay.
So I bought one. It was essentially a surf suit. To do my first event, where I swam a mile in the River Severn, which is the highest tidal river or second highest tidal river in the world. But that was my kind of like first open water swimming event. I'd done some quarry swimming, and that was like amazing. That was the August of 2019. So just as I was starting to gain my confidence. But since then, throughout the winter, it's just, I'm sorry, but it's too cold to actually you maybe go for a dip as you do, Pav, but getting in for a sustained period of time is challenging. And then when I thought I had a heart condition, it maybe held me back from doing that.
Right. So like kind of the shock.
Yeah. Off I go, sink to the bottom of the quarry, never to be seen again. But yeah, so this summer, I've been swimming skins, as it's called.
As they call it.
So you swim in skins. So yeah, I don't like the wetsuit. It's too much restriction on my stroke.
Right.
So yeah, I've been budgies only, and I think it's called shrink or swim.
Definitely shrink or swim.
The water temperature can vary overnight. In shallow water, it actually varies quicker than deeper water. So kind of, I went the other week and it was down to 15 degrees. It'd been warm, but it'd been quite windy, and I got there and he said, "Oh, wetsuit," and I was like, "No, this is a crazy guy that kind of is opened a windsurf school and probably never lived a life away from it." And he was like, "Yeah, wetsuit swim today," and I was like, "No, mate." I was like, "You know me, I'd just get in," and he was like, "It's 15 degrees," and I was like, "Oh, I don't have my wetsuit with me." And you get in, and you know from taking a dip, it's that immediate. You've got to focus on that out breath.
Takes your breath away, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's when I first started to do open water swimming, I remember my friend's brother, he had a heart condition actually, and started swimming to improve his health. But he's now like super distance, like swam Lake Windermere, which I think is like 20 miles long or something. Swam the channel as a relay. But I remember him pulling me to one side before I went in, and he was like, "It's going to be cold. Look dead in the eye. It's going to be cold. You're going to feel shock. Focus on your out breath." I was like, "Okay." And I went and got changed. I came back and he was like, "Right, what are you going to do?" And had I not had that, I think I would have, when you hear about these people jumping into water in the summer after, it's really warm and then they die. I think I might have been one of those.
Might be one of those.
Yeah, so his advice, and it always sticks with me: you get in, you absorb the temperature, then you get on with what you're going to do. But I love the feeling of it. It's
great. It's great that you've found something that you love. Do you have any other hobbies at all? Anything that?
So still love playing football when we're allowed back. I definitely want to keep training for a triathlon when I can. Yeah. Like I said, that's like my life goal. And now that I've got the okay from the ticker man, it's game on for that. I love boxing with a severe passion. And actually, I had a conversation with my boxing coach last Friday. So I've just gone back, really, because he's like one of the first people to say he was offering sessions when the PTs were allowed to.
Yeah.
And he's been talking about my progress since I've gone back, but I've flitted in and out with it. And I was like, do you know what? I think the reason why I'm making better progress now than I ever have done before. And he was like, before I even had time to say it, he went, because you're fitter. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. I'm not knackered out from it because I'm fitter and I'm ready to go and do it. And I absolutely love, knocking the shit out of a bag, hitting the pads. And I had a charity fight, actually, that probably part of my health journey, actually. It was more, I did it for the wrong reasons. I didn't do it for me. I did it for my mum. So in the March of 2017, I did a ultra white collar boxing.
Right.
Which I know from watching Stuart Kerr's stories. He's got one of those, one of the trophy things that you get sat underneath his TV cabinet. So you might be able to relate to that. But yeah, so that was my kind of introduction into boxing, and then I've floated in and out with it. But now I'm fit enough
It's a good way to burn those calories.
Certainly is.
Brutal workout.
First, my induction at Sky was one of the days we went to you get a tour around the Sky Studios as part of your induction.
Yeah.
And it was the day that Anthony Joshua was signing his pro contract live on Sky Sports. And we were all stood there getting an introduction from the security guard about what this is and what that is. And I could feel this presence behind me, but I'd look over my right shoulder, there was nobody there over my left, and everybody else I was with was laughing. And it was AJ, because I was tall, was like, yeah. And then I chatted to him for about, my whole group went off and finished a tour, and I was still chatting to AJ for about 20 minutes. Awesome. Asking me if, would I spar with him? And I was like laughing and joking. I was like, mate, I said, I can't spar with you because I'll knock you out. And I was, at that time, that's when I was like 30 stone. So there was no way I was going to knock him out. He was probably like, yeah, whatever, mate. Yeah, you're. And a few people have said about my journey and things, because my journey was quite a similar timeline to Tyson Fury's. And people have been like, oh, he's the next Tyson Fury. And I get shouted at, like, I was out for a run yesterday, and these two girls were walking back along the seafront, and we're like, oh, I thought you were Tyson Fury. And I was like, I'm trying. Yeah, so, Tyson, if you're listening.
I know. So that leads me on to one of the questions, actually. Simon, who was a previous guest, obviously you've spoken to him about running. You're doing the Race for the Stones, which I believe is 100 kilometers this week. Is that right?
Yes.
So one of his questions is, how are you feeling today? Because he believes that you should be on around 50 kilometers up to now, possibly 45, 50 kilometers. So he wants to know what you're at the moment, how are you feeling physically, how are you feeling mentally, and what is your plan for the rest of the week?
Well, by the time you hear this podcast, I hope that I'm done with the 100K. But yeah, Tuesday evening, I'm at 43 kilometers. So I did my longest run ever. My longest run ever previously was 21K.
Yep.
When I thought I'd done a half marathon, I found out it was 100 meters short. But the 25K yesterday, and I've chosen a very particular running partner. Actually, it's my only running partner, really. A guy that's really motivational to me. It's helped me get my 10K time down. And when I decided I was going to sign up for it, which took me about 5 seconds, and clicked on it, and then was like, oh shit. And I was like, shit, where's Onu? Onu's like texted him. I was like, you need to sign up for this because I need a pacer. So he's not going to let me fail on it. But yeah, he got me through 25K yesterday. He's got a really good strategy for it. To be fair, I was planning on maybe going out on Monday night at midnight and trying to break the back and getting 5 or 10K in. But I left the strategy in his hands. He's a distance runner, has been for many years. I know that he'll come up with the right plan. And he said, we've got to get, and he talks in miles over kilometers. I think in kilometers. So we're always having a battle. But he was like, we need to do 15 miles today. So that's 25K. And I was like, all right. And it was a lot warmer than I thought. And if you've seen my stories, I came back with sweat-stained t-shirt.
I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
I get it in my hat. I'm on the peak of my hat.
Yeah. So I think I might have lost 3.5 kilograms just on that run.
On that run? Wow.
And,
so physically, how are you feeling?
Yeah, today was hard. We did 18K today, and I was a minute a mile slower. My legs felt like lead. I was grouchy and tired. I told him to F off at least 17 times. He wouldn't leave me alone. He kept getting, it's only tips he's given me: get your head up, loosen your shoulders, get your knees up. All things that, as actually, I need to hear from him. but I was in a dark. I've never been to as dark a place as I have today with any training.
Well,
Um,
mentally, how are you feeling?
I feel really good because actually, do you know what? I've run 43 kilometers in 2 days. The other side of it is I've still got 57 to do.
Yeah, isn't it? So what's the breakdown now for the rest of the week? Yeah.
We're going to try another 18k tomorrow. If we can get to 15, I know that we're 14 and a half kilometers left over the next 4 days. I want to be done on Saturday. I don't want to take it into Sunday. I've got an open water swim booked, which is purely to try and get in the cold water to recover.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to come out of there and go for a run. So we've got a 10 Saturdays meant to be a celebratory 10k, which Paul Gin Lad and Fitness has said he might do with me, which he might do. He will do. I'm sure Onu will still be there dragging me through. I know that Rhiannon said that she'd come down and cheer me across the finish line. There is no finish line, but so if I want to be left with just 10k on Saturday, that means I need to do 47 in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Got you.
So whatever that is, a day, 19 a day. Is that right? I don't know. I don't have my calculator in front of me.
So I think that's
16 a day, I think. So which is the mileage is coming down.
Yeah.
Which was the strategy. That was break the back of it, bring it down every day, because every day is going to get harder anyway.
Good way of thinking. So I think we've got some questions. So
are these quick fire questions?
No, these are no. So
no. Just wonder what mindset I need to be in.
So we'll do just a couple of these and we'll wrap it up. How's that sound?
Yeah, it's going to be. I think we're on schedule to take Joe's record.
Yeah. So, have you learned anything from the previous 6 podcasts?
Yes. At the start, I think I jumped in too quickly. So now I tend to leave the question out there and let the person finish a bit better.
Okay.
I've learned, just by starting it, I learned how to do a podcast and make it posted. I've learned that I need to be a bigger part of the JSA community on Facebook. And from every guest, I have been able to shape my new challenge goals better than I've ever been able to before. So I'm actually learning from my guests myself. So yeah, I've taken away being consistent with logging to MFP. I've taken away being able to shape a different challenge goal. I've taken away getting a set of budgies. And I learned from Jack's podcast in particular that actually there was a lot more to my story, and I related a lot to his podcast.
I think a lot of people have. I think it was a great podcast, Jack's. I think I've said to him myself that I wasn't. I'll hold my hands up when people say, "Oh, I've had a poor relationship with food." I just didn't get it. Like, I ate food because I liked food. It wasn't because I was feeling emotionally sad or in a particular way. Like, I ate food. I mean, I ate a lot of food just because I liked eating it. It wasn't a case where I just didn't grasp when people said, oh, I had a poor relationship with food. And when I listened to Jack's podcast, I kind of got it. So
I didn't realize I had a poor relationship with food because I thought like you till I listened to Jack's, and I thought, no, you had a poor relationship with food and a poor relationship with all the other stuff I've spoken about. You know, I need to. I remember my dad saying to me, like, we would go for a burger, and I'd be like, every time I'd be like, double up, please.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, every time. Why do you need to double up? And I don't, now I would say that I don't think about doing that. But I would just do it out of habit. Not out of habit, out of greed, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was greedy.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So, yeah, I think, but I related a lot to that, and it helped me probably be able to bring this story to life, my own story.
That's good. Good that you've been able to take snippets from your guests. I can't remember who this was from, so I do apologise. But what's been your biggest challenge to date, fitness or non-fitness?
Dealing with deja vu.
Dealing with the deja vu.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you have learned that stands out as the thing that has surprised you the most?
Sorry, can you say that again?
The one thing that you've learned that stands out as the thing that has surprised you the most?
So one thing I've learned from the podcast.
From anything. Be it your fitness journey, be it you thought, wow, that was a bit of a light bulb moment kind of for you.
Recently, I'd say recently, maybe in the last 6 months, since I've lost my weight, and to all my friends, they call me Big Man because they think they're funny fuckers because my surname's Man.
Yeah.
And I think I'll always have that tag. That's who I am. But the main greeting I would have from people, clients at work, colleagues, when I first meet people, there was the reaction of, God, you're a big guy. And that changed. I've not actually heard it that said that way. I'm now here, you're tall. And I was like, hang on a second, I never thought of it. Whenever I'd hear big before, I'd always think tall.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not what people were saying to me. They were talking about my stature and my size. Whereas now, because when people say you're tall, that's what they're noticing. They're not noticing my size.
Right.
So yeah, having had that tagline for many years, it was interesting and I don't know how I noticed it. I think maybe I just noticed one person say it, and then I picked up that actually everybody was saying it. So yeah, that was a surprise and a realization that I'd done, the right things. And biggest learning has probably been that I don't need to show off. I don't need to be. I remember, so recently there was a guy one of the people that works in a gym as a football coach. He lost a friend who I met once. A week later, I met him at the boxing, and he was the big bubbly comedy guy of their group.
Yeah.
And a week later, he topped himself.
Oh.
And that was the only time I met him. And I felt that. I was like, fucking hell, like I only met him a week ago. And I could see that his friend and everything was destroyed. But I've hid behind that need to be humorous, likable, all of that, all of my life, because I'm not confident in who I am.
Just be you.
Yeah, you don't need to. No, I have a sarcastic comedy, quite type nature. It's my grandfather was the same, but I've hid behind that, and I learned that from thinking about that person, that actually he was deep and unhappy inside. And maybe if you know those people, just consider why they're acting like that.
100%. So, even though I'm pretty sure people who are listening know, for those who are relatively new, where can people find you after listening to this?
So I would probably have usually answered that with at the bar,
Yeah.
but I've made a decision. I'm going to try and hold back on the booze. So no, you can find me at Amanndoesweightloss_JSA. You can find me on Facebook, Alistair Mann. So my first name is spelled ALISDAIR, and I get terribly upset when people don't spell it that way. Despite the fact that Billy Connolly does a joke about the spelling of my name, and posh people that go to St Andrews,
All right.
people with a name like Farquhar. And Alistair, spelt with a DAIR. So, you can maybe remember it from that.
Excellent. So, I just want to finish on again by just saying thank you. I think it's been an eye-opening story, and I think when your dad does listen to you, I think he will be proud of you telling your story. And I think a lot of people will find it very interesting in the journey that you've been on. I certainly have, and especially when we had the conversation yesterday about the pre-podcast chat. It was extremely interesting. So, on that note, I think what we'll do is say thanks everyone for listening. As Alistair said in the podcast earlier, he's now doing a weekly podcast in addition to these guest podcasts, which will they will cover a selection of people who are currently doing the new JSAM challenge for the next 12 weeks. So keep an eye out for those new podcasts. So Alistair, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I really appreciate you hosting. Maybe there'll be a reason for you to come back a third time. We never know. There's something that we might have discussed.
Never say never.
Never say never. But as I said before, if anybody's found any of these topics resonating, or you want to talk about anything like that, my door is always open, and I'll quite happily listen to you and keep your story between you and I. Just thank you for everybody who supported the podcast, because I'm truly overwhelmed by some of the stories I get, some of the messages that I get, and I still can't actually believe that people are listening. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your support. So thanks, Pav.
Excellent. All right, cheers now. Good night.
Cheers. Good night.
So, I've got some quick fire questions, about half a dozen, so let's go. First one, men's lycra shorts, yes or no?
Yes, as a like cycling short, absolutely. Stops the chafing.
There you go, Mark. That was from Mark. Your go-to drink in the pub.
A pint of lager of some sort, Peroni, just a good strong lager.
From a premium strength lager. None of this Carling piss or all like that.
Oh no, and do you know what? If anybody who drinks Foster or Carling, and there's something wrong with you.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
Yes, Team Pineapple, get in. What is your ideal weekend?
Depends. When it's still like a normal weekend.
Ideal weekend. What is it?
Oh, it depends. Time away, seeing family. Depends if it's a normal weekend or not. I'm just because I've lived.
That never happens often.
You what? Sorry.
In Villa win? That never happens often.
When just spending time with other people. The worst weekends is when I feel like I'm spending time by myself. So yeah, socializing in some way, whether it's friends, family, maybe a few beers, watching the football, and maybe doing some sort of sport myself.
How many tequilas before 7 is too many?
This has come from the
This is the book signing.
From the book signing, and I think I instigated it. Well, I think one person mentioned it, and I went for it.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many was drunk, but there was too many for somebody. I know that much. So it depends who that question was from. But yeah, too many. Probably 10.
10. My God. And is there anyone who inspires you in any aspect of your life?
Loads of people inspire me. My best friend, my dad. It's a certain person that inspires me. People that call me out of my own bullshit, and the whole of the JSA community inspires me. But anybody who's willing to put in the fucking hard work, and I think as
Denzel, get what you put in.
Denzel Washington says in one of his university leaving speech, don't just do it because it's easy, but do it because it's hard.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.